Take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
CannabisRadio.com presents The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hey, this is great, man.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and toking lovers of liberty. It is Monday, June 6, 2016, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. And my God, it's got to be 420 degrees outside here. Oh, wow, folks. We are back here in Scottsdale, Arizona at the headquarters for CannabisRadio.com, and it is scorching hot outside in Scottsdale. Last I checked, it was 107 degrees outside, and that's down from where it was early. Nope, 110 now, according to my cell phone. So yeah, 110 degrees outside. It's like stepping out into a blow dryer. It's just amazing how hot it gets out here, but glad to be back. We've got a week's worth of shows we're going to be doing here from Arizona, and I'll be enjoying the air conditioning as much as possible. We're going to be unpacking the audio from the Normal Aspen Legal Seminar, and my apologies because I wanted to get you some of that audio for today's show, but I just ran out of time, had a lot of errands to get to. But on tomorrow's show, I promise we are going to bring you the full remarks from Dr. Carl Hart from Columbia University. We'll bring that to you in hour 2 tomorrow so I can get the audio all cleaned up. But he did an amazing speech that everybody was just talking about all weekend long. And also we're going to get the audio from Barry Grissom. I want to keep wanting to say Bruce, but it's Barry. Barry Grissom. He was the former U.S. attorney for the state of Kansas. Yeah, former federal prosecutor at the Normal Aspen Legal Seminar, speaking to all of the normal criminal defense attorneys. And what a cool guy. He had a lot of great stuff to say. So we'll bring that to you, plus many of the presentations that went on. If you like the nitty gritty of marijuana law, both from the criminal defense side and from the emerging legal business side, this week is going to be a great week of shows for you. We'll bring you most of that audio in hour 2 of our show, so you can get that. Also, some stuff happening this week. I'm going to be taking a shot at some revamping of the RadicalRuss.com website, and what we're trying to get set up is the Russ Belville Show VIP situation. We want to have VIP memberships for you, and what will eventually happen is hour 2 as a podcast is going to end up in those VIP subscriptions, just like it used to be back in the 420 radio days. So if you enjoyed listening to this recording and listening to the hour 2 recordings, soon you will have to be a Russ Belville Show VIP to be able to get at that, and other great stuff that we're going to put on the website, including exclusive t-shirts and hats and stickers and all that kind of good stuff. And the new Russ Belville Show pin, we're going to have a new logo that we're going to be debuting as well when we get to that new website. So look forward to that. We'll be giving you some updates throughout the week as we keep developing. But coming up on today's show, all sorts of great segments to get to. We've got a look at the latest poll coming out from Quinnipiac University showing majority support for marijuana legalization. But not only that, it marks a milestone in marijuana legalization polls. So we'll tell you all about that when we get to our drug war data mining. And of course, today's Monday, so we'll get to our cannabis Q&A with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. He's going to answer your questions on cannabis science, culture, history, and health. You can ask him in the chat room, or you can call in live at 971-533-7111. And then at the end of the show, we'll have time for a radical rant where I'm going to go off. Did you see this thing about the gummy amphetamines that the FDA approved for kids? Yeah, I think I better rant about that for a little bit. So stay tuned for that. Plus Toker Talk Radio Hour 2 right after that. So plenty coming up today on the Russ Belville Show.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
seed to sale, clicks to conversions, and more. You're listening to the Cannabis Radio Network.
The next generation of vaporizers has arrived. Vuber vaporizers are blazing the way with unparalleled technology for oil, concentrate, or dry flower pens. Providing unsurpassed customer service and expert craftsmanship, Vuber vaporizers use cutting-edge technology, providing a power-packed, smoother vapor with a lifetime guarantee. Experience vaporizing the way it was meant to be. The Vuber way.
Doc Rob, the concierge for better living.
My guests say Razzie Berry. We're talking about nature, naturopathic medicine, as well as the concept of prevention and preventing disease.
Empower people to live a naturopathic lifestyle, get to know your body, understand its rhythms, remove toxins, and use natural alternatives whenever possible. 90 to 95% of cancers are due to environment and lifestyle risk factors. I mean, that's a huge number. That means that cancer is preventable.
The concierge for better living with Doc Rob. Only on CannabisRadio.com.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Only on CannabisRadio.com.
Get.Buzz. .Buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .Buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .Buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .Buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz.
It's time for the Cannabis Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Cannabis Radio News is now available exclusively at CannabisRadio.com. Now your marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds. This is Cannabis Radio News.
This is your Cannabis Radio News for Monday, June 6, 2016. New York, New York. According to a profile in the Washington Post, officials from the NFL have met in a conference call with medical marijuana researchers to learn more about the use of phytocannabinoids for head trauma. Eugene Monroe, the Baltimore Ravens tackle, who is the first active player to advocate for medical cannabis use in the NFL, has donated $80,000 to researchers investigating the clinical uses of cannabis versus concussion and chronic traumatic encephalopathy. The NFL officials were Jeff Miller, the league's senior vice president for player health and safety, and neurological surgeon Russell Lonzer, a member of the league's head, neck, and spine committee. One of the researchers contacted said of the NFL officials, quote, "They are definitely showing genuine curiosity, and they are definitely not throwing up roadblocks," end quote. Oakland, California, Forbes magazine. A test case challenging the Internal Revenue Service interpretation of expenses related to the sale of medical marijuana is headed to court. On Monday, June 6th, Harborside Health Center, the country's largest medical marijuana dispensary, will be in tax court to argue the application of Section 280E of the Internal Revenue Code. In 2010, after an audit, the IRS sent Harborside a bill for $2.4 million. The reason for the tax bill: the IRS declared Harborside, and thus all medical marijuana dispensaries, to be drug trafficking organizations and therefore subject to a special tax rule found at Section 280E of the tax code. That rule says that expenses connected with the sale of certain illegal drugs, including Schedule I drugs like marijuana, are disallowed. Billings, Montana. 3 groups are fighting to get marijuana reform issues on the ballot, but they have wildly different reform goals in mind. Safe Montana is a group that is pushing I-176, which is an initiative to repeal Montana's medical marijuana program. Safe Montana founder Steve Zabawa says they've collected enough signatures for the ballot, and he has put over $70,000 into the campaign. Montana Cannabis Industry Association is pushing I-182, the initiative to restore Montana's medical marijuana program by removing the 3-patient per caregiver limit and doctor monitoring established by the legislature and upheld by the state Supreme Court. MCIA has contributed over $94,000 to the effort. A third measure, I-178, seeks to legalize recreational marijuana in Montana, but the group pushing that initiative is short on funding and signatures. Kansas City, Missouri. Normal Kansas City, the local chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, has received approval to move forward with a municipal initiative to decriminalize marijuana possession offenses. If passed, the measure will amend local laws regarding the possession of up to 35 grams of marijuana for adults aged 21 and up from a criminal misdemeanor, punishable by up to 6 months in jail and a $1,000 fine, to a civil offense, punishable by a $50 fine, no arrest or criminal record. With a deadline of August 25, 2016, to collect the 1,703 signatures needed to qualify the initiative for a vote, the organization's executive director, Jamie Katz, is hoping to gather more than 2,300 signatures to offset the possibility of some signatures being deemed invalid. Mrs. Katz and her volunteers started the process of collecting signatures during last week's First Friday Art Festival at the Crossroads Art District and will continue to work hard over the next 12 weeks. Fairbanks, Alaska. As the Fairbanks North Star Borough continues to receive marijuana permit applications, a number of groups are working to keep the businesses out of the borough. A Salcha man has launched an initiative to get a question on the local ballot asking voters to stop marijuana commercialization, and a strip mall condominium association has declared pot shops prohibited under its rules, the Fairbanks Daily News Miner reported. Borough Clerk Nancy Ashford Bingham said she received the voter initiative application from Jim Ostland recently. The application is pending her review. If reviewed, he will have until July 8th to gather at least 2,570 signatures. This has been your Cannabis Radio News for Monday, June 6, 2016. I'm Russ Belville.
Every strain, every sale, every medical study. Keep it right here on the Cannabis Radio Network.
Play as Ted Growing, expelled botany sophomore and the biggest grower in town, only on Weed Firm Replanted. Available on the App Store and Google Play.
It's a lot of work being the biggest grower in town. Maintaining a room full of plants while dealing with a slew of eccentric customers? From a hardcore partier to the curious neighbor next door.
Is anybody home?
Help me expand my bud business by unlocking new strains, customizing my grow room, and completing challenges that you can't get enough of. Grow your empire so big you can see it from space. Low on funds? Don't worry. Weed Firm Replanted is free to download.
Download Weed Firm Replanted for free on the App Store and Google Play today. Get growing, Mr. Growing.
NORMAL stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks may be far less than those posed by legal drugs. The Russ Belville Show, providing dictionaries to drug czars since 2009.
With over 6 years of experience in the industry, New Era CPAs is one of the nation's leading cannabis accounting firms, helping hundreds of growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies with their tax, legal, and business strategies. New Era CPAs offices cover the West Coast from Seattle to San Diego, and their skilled team is always available to help you take your business to the next level. Visit neweracpas.com for more info and set up a consultation. Welcome to the New Era.
The world of cannabis is evolving at a frenetic pace. The Russ Belville Show gets behind the headlines to take a deeper look at breaking news in our Cannabis Focus.
Today in the Cannabis Focus, I want to take a look at medical marijuana research around the world where Israel is leaving the rest of us behind. Israel has long been a center for medical cannabis research ever since Dr. Raphael Mechoulam discovered THC back in 1964. Prior to that, we knew that pot got you high, we just didn't know why or how. And Dr. Mechoulam is the one that figured out THC. Later in the 90s is where we figured out what THC was activating when we had the discovery of the endocannabinoid system in 94, was it? I can't remember the exact year. And we are still learning more to this day about how our body's endocannabinoids and our endocannabinoid system works and how phytocannabinoids, plant cannabinoids, interact with that. In Israel, they've been working on medical cannabis for decades now, and they just released a study at the International Jerusalem Conference on Health Policy. This was released May 26th. And it was examining cancer and non-cancer patients that have been using medical marijuana through the Israeli Health Ministry. And what they found is the vast majority of patients reported that medical marijuana helped relieve pain and nausea. I know this is like from the Department of No Duh, but this is, here in America, we've had medical marijuana since 96 in California, and none of the states that have medical marijuana programs have bothered to even survey the patients to find out if it's working, how well it's working, how well do they use it, how do they use it. So getting this knowledge out of Israel is definitely a positive, that we're getting somebody who's asking their patients about what's going on. But it relieves pain and nausea, and this is with over 22,000 patients that have been using medical marijuana. They say the minor side effects are dry mouth, hunger, sleepiness, and fatigue. Just what we mostly know that are the side effects from cannabis use. And almost all of the patients, 99.6% of them, applied to use medical marijuana after all other conventional medicines proved ineffective. In other words, medical marijuana as the medicine of last resort. This is a huge problem. We need to change this sort of thinking. This idea that medical marijuana is a medicine of last resort, that people should have to go through all of these pharmaceuticals that have toxic side effects, that have terrible side effects that often require the use of another pill to deal with the side effects. Why should we put people through all of that rather than have them start on the natural, non-toxic, low side effect herb? I don't know how Israel's laws are set up with respect to qualifying for medical marijuana. I don't know if that's a roadblock that's causing this, but we need to change this mindset. As we continue legalizing medical marijuana throughout the United States and the world, we need to end its classification as a drug altogether, as being something that's like a prescription that needs to be controlled. We need to deschedule cannabis to give people the most latitude and the least stigma for using this as a medicine of first resort, and even as a supplement to prevent the maladies that might come along that would require medical cannabis in the first place. But more about this study. They found 40% of the patients got a doctor's recommendation. 75% choose to smoke, 21% use oils, and the rest vape. And less than 1 in 10 patients stopped using the drug after they were first surveyed. So this is something that can be used by the opponents. They'll say, see, once you get on it, you never get off it. But that's a lousy attack from their side, considering most of the drugs that are being dispensed as pharmaceuticals have that same property. There's many of these statin drugs and anti-anxiety drugs that people end up on for the rest of their lives. So let's not worry about less than 1 in 10 stopped using it after they first started using it. Indeed, we still don't know a whole bunch about the endocannabinoid system. Like I said, it's only been in study for the past couple of decades, and we're learning more and more about what could be determined as an endocannabinoid deficiency. The possibility that some people might not have a fully functioning endocannabinoid system, might not be producing enough of their own endocannabinoids. And maybe this is the difference between some people who smoke pot and become typical, stereotypical stoners, the lazy, munchy, amotivated types, versus people who smoke pot and it seems to make their lives better. People like me, people like you, that we smoke pot and it enhances our life and it allows us to function at a better level. It's something that we'll be continuing to learn, and this information that we get out of Israel, as they're so much farther ahead on the issue than we are, is very groundbreaking. And we can find more and more of this. There's a great article on this in the Daily Caller, dailycaller.com, on Israel's medical marijuana programs. And the study, like I said, came out May 26th and was presented at the International Jerusalem Conference on Health Policy.
Hey, this is great, man.
Thanks, Tommy. And Tommy Chong just recently celebrated another birthday. Happy birthday to Tommy Chong, one of our colleagues here on CannabisRadio.com. Make sure you check out the Tommy Chong podcast and all the other great shows we got here at CannabisRadio.com. We got something for everyone. And now I'm going to go get something for myself because it's 20 after. Let's take a break.
We have your smoking section right here. This is the Cannabis Radio Network.
Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
I'm Radical Russ Belville, inviting you to join me every weekday on CannabisRadio.com for the Russ Belville Show. It's the NPR of POT. We bring you the latest marijuana headlines, cannabis analysis, drug war data, activist interviews, radical rants, and your live calls. Join me every weekday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, live only on CannabisRadio.com.
The Russ Belville Show reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while and share.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio.
Promoting the end of adult cannabis prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It's even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more on this edition of Drug War Data Mining.
Today in the Drug War Data Mines, we take a look at the latest poll from Quinnipiac University, which shows, once again, majority support for marijuana legalization. And the poll from Quinnipiac, which was conducted among registered voters, so that's good news. This is voters we're talking about, not just anybody who picks up the phone. Registered voters contacted both by landline and by cell phone. The poll shows 54% of voters believe that marijuana should be made legal in the United States. That was the question. No other qualifiers, no tax and regulate, no medical use, no small amounts, just, quote, marijuana should be made legal in the United States, end quote. 54% in favor of that, a strong majority, with only 41% opposed. So there's another 5% that haven't even made up their mind yet. But the best part about this poll, a couple of other information points to know about this, is that this is the 10th straight poll with majority support for marijuana legalization in the past 2 years. It's been over 2 years since a poll was taken that did not show majority support for marijuana legalization. 9 other national polls after this Quinnipiac one have found majority support. It's been as high as 61% in 2 polls, one from Associated Press, another one from Benenson Strategy Group. And other majority polls in the past 2 years have come from Gallup, the Pew Research Center, the General Social Survey, and CBS and Fox News. Wow. So it's been 2 years. And if we look back a little further, the last poll not to clear 50% support for marijuana legalization was a CBS News poll in May of 2014. However, that poll found a 48 to 47% plurality support for marijuana legalization. In other words, still more people supported legalization than were against it. It just wasn't a majority. How does that work? Well, you still have 3% undecided or 5% or whatever it is, right? And if we go back farther, January 2014, there was a poll from ABC News, Washington Post with a similar plurality. It was 49 to 48 in support for marijuana legalization. The last poll to register nationwide plurality opposition to marijuana legalization was from February 2013. That was when Fox News found 49 to 46 against it. The last nationwide poll with majority opposed to marijuana legalization, the last time you could get more than 50% or more opposed to marijuana legalization, the last time a majority of Americans were against legalizing, was a poll taken by Gallup in December 2012, where they found 50% of Americans were against legalizing. So in other words, it has been 3.5 years since any poll found a majority against marijuana legalization. And for the past 2 years, 10 straight polls have shown majority support for legalization. All sorts of interesting information in this poll from Quinnipiac as well. We do still find that we have a gender gap in marijuana legalization, the same gender gap we always find. Among men, it's 60-37. 60% of men support legalization, but with women, it's down to a plurality. It's 48-46. Women are 12 points behind men in marijuana legalization support. This is why I'm so excited about groups like Normal Women of Washington, Normal Women's Alliance, the MJBA Women's Group, the Women Grow organization. The more of these organizations that are focusing on women's perception of marijuana and other women who consume marijuana, the better our poll numbers, because we got to erase this gender gap that we've got. Of course, the Republicans are still opposed to legalization, 62-36. Voters over 65 are still opposed, 57-37. But every other group that you can name, by income, by politics, by age, by race, by ethnicity, every other group came up with support for legalizing marijuana, except white women. White women were tied 47-48, pretty close to a tie. Now, other top lines on this that are fascinating, when we get outside of legalization and go to medical, it's overwhelming. According to the question, American voters support 89-9 for legal medical marijuana if prescribed by a doctor. They mean recommend, but same diff, right? And the support tops 81% among any group. More than 4 out of 5 of any demographic you pick support medical marijuana. That fight is over. And when it comes to vets with PTS, the VA doctor should be allowed to prescribe medical marijuana to veterans by an 87-9 margin. 87-9. Even in the military households where they tend to be more conservative, they support 82-13. The use of medical marijuana for post-traumatic stress. So clearly, this is over as far as the medical marijuana fight goes. We have won that battle. So it is time now to direct our energies toward winning marijuana legalization for all people, to stop trying to draw these arbitrary lines over who should be punished for their cannabis use. Let's stop trying to figure out who's sick enough to protect from prohibition and just end the prohibition for everyone. That's the sensible thing to do. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll get Dr. Mitch Earlywine on the line and take your questions in our Cannabis Q&A. We got a lot of studies to talk about that have come out over the past couple of weeks. We'll also get a preview of his latest episode of Burning Issues, the Dr. Mitch podcast, here on CannabisRadio.com.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Earn your PhD in THC monetization with CannabisRadio.com. Don't be late. The cannabis industry is growing. Business is booming. And as new opportunities arise in newly legalized states, each market is getting more competitive. Today, it takes more than just being a good grower. Do you have the resources to market and handle this ever-changing business landscape? Let Canna Management Corporation help you grow your canna business with our vast resources and experience to make your business a fully functional service company. Financial management, HR, sales, marketing, efficiency, and more. CMC has the experience and the expertise to improve your business and help you better meet the demands of your clients and customers. Call Canna Management Corporation and let our team get you ready to grow. 415-269-8015. That's 415-269-8015. Or visit canna-management.com.
It's time for Cannabis Facts about teen drug use from Robert Platshorn's thesilvertour.org. This message is supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com. A recent survey by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control indicates that in states that have legalized medical marijuana, the rate of marijuana consumption among high school students has not increased. In fact, in legal states like Colorado, teen use has actually decreased significantly. It's simply no longer a big deal for teenagers in legal states. This was Cannabis Facts from thesilvertour.org, an educational nonprofit supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com.
Get the latest updates on the Russ Belville Show by following Radical Russ on Twitter and liking the Russ Belville Show on Facebook.
Are you playing an acoustic guitar but want to be louder without an amp? Try a resonator guitar. The fingerboard extension has National Resophonic and other resonators, square necks and round necks. Stop by the fingerboard extension downtown Corvallis at 120 Northwest 2nd Street today, or check out its inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com. Go wild hog in the woods.
It's time for the Russ Belville Show's Cannabis Q&A with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. Dr. Earlywine is a professor of psychology at the State University of New York at Albany and a leading author and researcher on cannabinoids and health, who pins the Ask Dr. Mitch column for High Times Magazine. Get your questions ready in our live chat or call in to 971-533-7111 now.
Welcome back, everybody. Time for our Cannabis Q&A with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. We're having all sorts of fun with our internet connection, trying to get this call set up, and I'm going to try Dr. Mitch on his cell phone instead, just to see if that's going to work a little bit better. But we're doing it live, as we usually do here, but we got all sorts of great studies that we're going to take a look at. Most recently, a study that has shown that cannabis consumers, the health of cannabis consumers, is not a big problem to worry about. And I'm really hoping we can get Dr. Mitch on the line for this one.
Hey, man.
Hello, Dr. Mitch. Can you hear me okay? Oh, wait, we got to switch the microphone over so Dr. Mitch can hear me okay. Got to get all the connections working the way they're supposed to. And now Dr. Mitch could probably hear me. How you doing, Dr. Mitch? Hello, Dr. Mitch. Can you hear me?
Having a great day. How about you?
Doing okay, other than the internet. I think the Phoenix sun has melted our internet. Is that possible?
Sad but true.
All right, we got some sort of crazy delay on this too. So, Dr. Mitch, I'll just give you the questions as best I can. We've got a bunch of studies to cover here, and the first one that we're really interested in is this study that says that the long-term health risk of marijuana use is pretty much gum disease. What did you think about this study?
Well, we've talked about this before, and there definitely is a tendency for fans of the plant to forget to brush and floss right before bed. But they tried to control for this as best as they could. I still think that's the main source of this result. But what's more important is even with this large sample, it's a null result for all those cardiovascular and basically other health disorders that they should have been able to detect if they really were there, and they're just not there. This is longitudinal data, not just a correlational thing. So I think we can all rest assured we need to put our floss next to the vaporizer and everything will be fine.
That's right. Just make it a habit, make it your standard operating procedure. But one concern I had about this, Dr. Mitch, is this is, if I'm not mistaken, the same data, that Dunedin, New Zealand data that was used in 2012 to say that we lose 8 points of IQ. So how can we say that this time it's good and that time before it was wrong?
It's curious because this data set has been kind of a few times, but I feel like if there really was an effect, we would have gotten it this time, and it's just not panning out. In the past, I know I've ribbed these guys for basically going on big data mining expositions, if you will, but again, the error of no finding is less likely than finding something by in this kind of data set.
Okay, so we can have a little more trust because we're not finding the cardiovascular problems, the pulmonary problems, the long-term health risks that had previously been thought to happen for long-term marijuana use. All right, we are definitely having some
I'm sorry, Russ. I seem to have lost you.
Yeah, we have having some connection difficulties there. I'll see if I can get you just to the next study here. A study coming that was out of the paper in Human Brain Mapping that says, oh, now we've lost Dr. Mitch on the line altogether. We are definitely having some connection difficulties. I'll see if I can pick him up on the Skype connection instead this time. We're I don't know. Again, it's 110 degrees outside. Does that have anything to do with it? We can't actually melt the internet. I don't think that's physically possible, but we are definitely having some connection difficulties here. Getting to Dr. Mitch Earlywine on the line. And given that doesn't look like we're going to be able to connect, I'll just continue with the segment and run down some of these studies. A study that was published today, according to researchers at the Center for Brain Health at the University of Texas at Dallas, they say chronic marijuana use disrupts the brain's natural reward processes. The researchers demonstrated for the first time with functional magnetic resonance imaging that long-term marijuana users had more brain activity in the mesocorticolimbic reward system when presented with cannabis cues than with natural reward cues. Basically, they're trying to make the point here that marijuana is addictive, and the problem with this is, and Dr. Carl Hart does a great presentation on this, is you do brain mappings on any different set or group of people, and you can make them say just about whatever you want them to say. The report here was on 59 adult marijuana users and 70 non-users. And it seems like a dumb thing to study when you consider that you're asking whether or not people who've smoked pot light up, whether their brains light up when they see pot. Well, yeah, because they know that pot is something that is rewarding, that's something that feels good. And the non-pot users not lighting up for it would be just like, someone from the South American jungles not lighting up a reward circuit when they see a Twinkie. They've never had a Twinkie. They've never used a Twinkie. They don't know that a Twinkie is good. Why would their brains light up for it? The study seems highly suspect to me, and I wish I could talk to Dr. Mitch about it because I think he'd have probably just about the same things to say. Another study that's interesting, a Dutch study that says legal cannabis cultivation would boost human rights. And this was carried out by Dutch researchers who are investigating the crime problems that they still have in the Netherlands. A lot of people know that the Netherlands is well known for its coffee shop system, where retail sales of up to 5 grams of cannabis are legal for adults 21 and older, and the use is legal. But many people don't realize that the back end, the commercial end of that, is still quite illegal. And we still have arrests and prison time and commercial violence over the back end of the marijuana trade, the cannabis trade in the Netherlands. And part of this study was to determine how best to deal with that and how to comport with the 3 international treaties, the drug conventions that still govern much of what goes on with marijuana, with cannabis in the various countries that are signatories to that treaty. And the treaty is pretty specific about how countries can legislate and regulate cannabis should they choose to do so. One of the breakouts of this study, though, is that the UN human rights agreements that countries are also signatories to kind of trump other laws. So they're making the point here that serving human rights, the human rights to avoid being punished, the cruel and unusual punishments that could be exacted on people, can be avoided through a system of cannabis regulation and legalization, and thereby assure people's human rights. And since that becomes a human rights issue, the human rights issue would trump the cannabis issue. And that's what these Dutch researchers were trying to make the case for. A very interesting story. You can find out more about that on marijuanatimes.org under the headline, Dutch Study Says Legal Cannabis Cultivation Would Boost Human Rights. Another story out there that was very interesting from the marijuana science and data collection perspective is a look at the number of teens with marijuana-related problems and how they have declined over the past decade. This was a study published in the Journal of the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. And it found that as more states legalize the use of marijuana, the number of teens with cannabis-related problems is declining. The study revealed a 24% decline in marijuana-related problems. These problems were things like becoming dependent on marijuana, having trouble in school, having trouble in relationships. They also found that they had a drop in problems related to cannabis and reductions in behavioral issues such as fighting, property crimes, and selling drugs. Now, there's somewhat of a chicken and egg syndrome here. We don't know if kids are having fewer problems, thereby not getting involved in marijuana, or kids are not getting involved in marijuana as much and thereby not having as many problems. But the researchers here, and this was through the Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, Missouri, they're still not sure what's going on with this. The researchers assume the conduct problems came first, and then the kids move on to the marijuana, but they don't know that based on what data they had to work with, which was a 12-year span of data, 2002 to 2013, in the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. This was for adolescents aged 12 to 17. We covered some of this in our drug war data mining last week, where we showed that annual use of marijuana has dropped by about a 10% decline overall. We also have a decrease in teenage pregnancy rates, adolescent crime rates, binge drinking among high school students. And another study in the American Journal of Public Health also shows that medical marijuana laws don't directly affect the views of young people. So all of this concern from our opponents that we'd call marijuana a medicine and it would change young people's perception to think it's no big deal, and then they'd use more marijuana and we'd have more teenage drug addicts, just hasn't happened. And it seems that the opposite has happened. And I think a large degree of what makes this happen this way is that we're telling kids the truth about it. It seems the more that we lie about these substances, the worse reaction we get from the kids. And when we just tell them the truth, there seems to be a reduction in their interest in it. It just becomes old and boring and no big deal. Finally, we have one last study to take a look at here. This one coming from the Medical News Today. A study from researchers at the University of Western Australia say cannabis alters DNA, leading to genetic mutations that may raise the risk of serious diseases for users of the drug and future generations. Yes, this must explain the X-Men, right? So we all smoked pot and we all turned into the X-Men. This is, of course, a ridiculous study saying that there's cannabis-related DNA damage that can be passed on to future generations. This would not have any correlation to anything we've seen in reality. We haven't seen a bunch of mutant kids born out of the Summer of Love. We haven't seen all the children of the hippies of the 60s with special mutant powers or 3 arms or anything crazy like that. Once again, it seems like we got the reefer madness going on in Australia trying to scare a bunch of people. It's not working anymore. We've got decades and decades of modern results of cannabis use. We have not seen any problems in over 7,000 years. Well, sorry I couldn't get Dr. Mitch on the line for us, folks. We'll work out these internet issues and have him back next week. Coming up next, Radical Rant. Let's talk a little bit about amphetamine gummies for kids, huh? Stay tuned. Back in 2.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Forwarding the cause of legalization and research of the growing cannabis industry, one podcast at a time. The Cannabis Radio Network.
Play as Ted Growing, expelled botany sophomore and the biggest grower in town, only on Weed Firm Replanted. Available on the App Store and Google Play.
It's a lot of work being the biggest grower in town. Maintaining a room full of plants while dealing with a slew of eccentric customers, from a hardcore partier to the curious neighbor next door.
Is anybody home?
Help me expand my bud business by unlocking new strains, customizing my grow room, and completing challenges that you can't get enough of. Grow your empire so big you can see it from space. Low on funds? Don't worry. Weed Firm Replanted is free to download.
Download Weed Firm Replanted for free on the App Store and Google Play today. Get growing, Mr. Growing.
Educator, author, and advocate Dr. Mitch Earlywine is here to tackle the burning issues.
And I'm here to clear up the myths about cannabis and burn them away with science.
CannabisRadio.com presents a no-holds-barred platform that seeks to redefine and revolutionize the entire scope of the cannabis culture while opening the door for more to join the cannabis crusade.
Dr. Kevin Hill.
You can't ignore the fact that, like alcohol, most people who use don't have a problem. So I think that you need to think about policy in that way while educating people properly about marijuana. I think that's the way to go.
Burning issues, only on CannabisRadio.com.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people.
Okay. Maybe you're high, too.
When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com.
We must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
That marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug.
Some think there won't be room for them in jail. We'll make room.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it and didn't inhale.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Radical Rant.
All right, welcome back, everybody. 49 after the hour, and today in the Radical Rant, I want to talk about the children. Won't somebody think of the children? What about the children? Something we hear all the time here on the side of legalizing marijuana, that we're just letting big marijuana take over. We want to lie to the kids. We want to get the kids addicted to marijuana so that we have lifelong customers. And we want to entice the kids. We're going to entice the kids with cartoons. We're going to have little cartoon mascots and entice the kids. And we're going to make gummy bears and cookies and chocolate bars not because adults like those things, but because we're evil. We're the evil big marijuana that wants to get the kids addicted. We want to lure them into our evil marijuana ways. So when we live in that world, right, what about the children? We have to trod so lightly when we try to help the kids out in any way. What, you want to give medical marijuana to children? No, only if it doesn't have THC in it. We don't want the kids getting high. So we can get these CBD bills passed in the South and in upper Midwest and Wyoming and Utah. We can get these CBD bills passed because we're not going to get the kids high because, God forbid, we don't want to be enticing the kids with the THC that's, non-toxic and can't kill them. Don't want to entice the kids with the THC. And even in the states that have medical marijuana, the parents have to fight to be able to dose their kids. New Jersey recently passed a bill, and I think Colorado's got one that Governor Hickenlooper's going to sign that says, okay, if you got a seriously ill kid and you've jumped through the hoops to get a medical marijuana, which usually means getting 2 doctors' approvals and, all sorts of extra steps, having independent pediatricians involved and all of that, parental signatures, everything you need. You jump through all those hoops, you get your kid the medical marijuana, but then they can't take it to school. So now these bills are being passed, and I'm glad they are. These bills are being passed to say, okay, if you've jumped through all the hoops to get your kid medical marijuana, we'll let you dose your kid at school, but it has to be you. You have to show up and dose them. You can't have the school nurse give them. The kid can't keep the medical marijuana on him. We have to put it somewhere safe because, God forbid, what about the children? We gotta protect the kids. Can't have the marijuana near the kids. Okay, so we're in that world, right? What about the children? And then you see, when it's not marijuana, we don't give a flying flea fart about the kids. We could care less about the kids. Hell, we'll push the drugs on the kids when it's not marijuana. Did you read this latest one? Just happened this last week. End of last week. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, approved candy-flavored amphetamines for kids. No kidding, folks. This is a drug called Adzenys. Adzenys, because, all new drugs have to score at least 30 points in Scrabble. Right? Adzenys, Adzenys XR-ODT. And it's amphetamine. It's just amphetamine, and it's a hard candy. I'm reading this right off of drugs.com, folks. It's a hard candy. What should you know about this amphetamine? It may be habit forming. Oh, no kidding. Really? It could have some side effects, I understand, too. Let's see what the side effects are. Hallucinations. Seeing, hearing, or feeling things that are not there. Okay, the kid could get hallucinations on the amphetamine candy that's been approved by the FDA. Severe mental changes, blurred vision, dizziness, false or unusual sense of well-being, or as some of us might call it, high, fast, irregular pounding or racing heartbeat or pulse, headache, nervousness, pounding in the ears, restlessness, shakiness in the legs, arms, hands, or feet, slow or fast heartbeat, trouble sleeping, twitching, twisting, or uncontrolled repetitive movements of the tongue, lips, face, arms, or legs, or as some of us know it as tweaking, uncontrolled vocal outbursts or tics, abdominal or stomach cramps, confusion, dark-colored urine, diarrhea, dizziness, fainting or lightheadedness, fainting, fever, muscle cramps or spasms, muscle pain or stiffness, nausea, seizures, sweating, unusual tiredness or weakness, vomiting, decreased interest in sexual intercourse. Well, I don't know if that's a problem for the kids. Difficulty having a bowel movement, constipation, dry mouth, hives or welts, itching or skin rash, inability to have or keep an erection, loss in sexual ability, desire, drive, or performance, loss of appetite, redness of the skin, unpleasant taste, and weight loss. These are the side effects that you can get from Adzenys, the new candy-flavored dissolvable lozenge, FDA just approved for children. And you know what else the FDA approved for kids? This was a couple months ago. OxyContin. For kids 11 and up. They approved OxyContin for ages 11 and up. Go ahead, take the synthetic heroin. Go ahead, take the candy amphetamines. But for God's sake, keep the THC out of your cannabis oil. And to think, we have to go through all of these hurdles to get bills passed to let a kid who's already been seen by 2 doctors, who's already been approved by the state to use this non-toxic herbal medication. We have to jump through hoops to be able to let those kids even just use it at school, much less, to have it applied to them at school, I should say. But these other drugs, this Adzenys, this lozenge, amphetamine lozenge, or the OxyContin the kid might have a prescription for, they'd be legally allowed to just carry that. Take it to school with them. This Adzenys, it's chewable, fruit-flavored drug with the same active ingredient as Adderall. It's basically extended-release gummy meth, as Mike Adams at High Times calls it. Approved by the FDA for patients as young as 6. As young as 6, folks. So we can't have the candy gummies for adults with marijuana because it might entice the kids, but the candy amphetamine for the kids, that's just fine. The OxyContin for the kids is just fine. And the other thing that bothers me about this double standard of what about the children? Oh God, we can't advertise marijuana with a cartoon. Can't have any cartoon characters for advertising marijuana because it'll appeal to the children. Because the children will see the cartoon characters and they will think that that's for them, right? So why does that not apply to Abilify? Why does that not apply to Lunesta? Why does this not apply to a number of drugs I see advertised on television with cartoons? These antidepressant drugs that have the cartoon umbrella or the cartoon robe, the cartoon letter A for Abilify. Somehow those cartoons aren't appealing to the kids, but if we had a cartoon around weed, why, that would be appealing to the kids. This double standard has no basis in science, reason, or logic. It is completely based in cultural bigotry. And we are going to keep fighting until marijuana is completely legal, till we end this stigma on cannabis consumers that has no bearing to the facts, has no bearing in any sort of reason. I can't believe that we live in a country where we're going to have gummy flavored speed. It's just amazing to me. And we're finding all sorts of side effects from this stuff. They say we don't have any long-term knowledge of what happens under marijuana. That's BS, because we got 7,000 years of people using marijuana. We don't know what happens when generations of kids are raised chewing down amphetamines all their life. I think we're starting to find out. I think we're starting to see some of these addiction problems manifest themselves from our overprescribing of these drugs to our kids. No long-term studies on that stuff, folks. And we're finding things like these Abilify. I saw a lawsuit on Abilify, class action suit, where they're claiming Abilify caused them to gamble recklessly. That Abilify was causing gambling addiction. Remember, every drug you see a lawsuit over or a recall for, is a drug that was approved as safe by the FDA. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us here from scorching hot Scottsdale, Arizona. For everyone here at CannabisRadio.com, thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for Hour 2, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.